For the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Telling you guys a bit of a kind of arranging video from Vango. So what we're looking at here is kind of Vango's new Earth collection. So the Earth collection is basically a whole range of mixture of tents, sleeping bags, furniture, lots of different items from gazebos. You know, it's designed really that's its core function, it's basically eco-friendly. What they've kind of revolutionarily done is something that's not necessarily new to Vango in many ways. It's something they've done for many years, but they've got this whole new collection which basically is probably more price orientated, something that's more affordable, and you've got that kind of eco story as well as the features and spec involved. So it's a really nice collaboration of all different things they've got in the past to a much more kind of pinpointed range. So the principle in all is basically majority of the products like this, for example, the Danube Hub, it's made from recycled material, single-use plastic. So what they've done is they've seen a point for waste and turned it into something that's usable. So something like this, pretty much mass majority, all the main material and everything like that is pretty much made from single-use plastic, and every single product in the range has almost a bottle count. So what they've done is they've made a relation from how many bottles would go into this. So a plastic bottle, which we all very much see every day, something like that, there's 131 sort of bits of plastic in that model, and in every single product you'll see there is a bottle relation to it, so you can really appreciate what we're looking at. If you look at the kind of the whole point as a spectrum, throughout the whole range you've got, on average we run about 7.7 billion plastic bottles in the UK in a year. That's a massive amount, and we turn that into, say, tons. It's 5 million tons of plastic just in bottles. Not necessarily in terms of other single-use plastics we use for food and things like that, but imagine if you took all those bottles and made this. So hypothetically, you're looking around about 59 million gazebos, Danube Hubs, with the bottles we use for plastic in the UK. Or if you went for the largest tent in the map for a point, you're looking at 28.5 million versions of those. That's an awful lot of, you know, wasteful material we can then put into stuff like this. And not only you've got the eco side of things, but there's also, the whole range has also got the spec to go with it. So you've got the eco story, you've got the reliability, the quality we know with Vango, plus unique features that sort of stand alone in the way it works. So what we'll do, we'll have a look around kind of the range of tents that we've got here. So starting with the Danube Hub. So the Danube Hub itself is a really nice sort of gazebo. It's kind of the one that everyone's sort of pushing to with Vango. It's the one, their sort of flagship one. 3.5 meters by 3.5 meters, mesh, and pretty much all the panels, and you can remove the door so it's nice and flexible. As we kind of go through the range, what we also see is, in the tent side of things at least anyway, 3 main designs. The 3 main designs break down into cold and air. In those said designs, what you also find is there might be different sizes as well, so it gives you the opportunity that you can sort of pick and choose how big you want it to be. So we'll start with the first one in the Earth range, which is the Ospress. Ospress is kind of more your traditional kind of style tent. You've got a kind of open front and a sort of side door. Main thing that's probably a little bit different to this in the past is not only, again, you've got a really, to be fair, you know, a really sort of usable design where you can use the door as a canopy with some additional king poles, but you've got a rain-safe door, which is certainly one of its bugbears of this sort of design. The tent is when it's raining, you can't walk in and out. With this model, you've got that, and you've got, on all of the whole Earth collection, is 2 mesh doors, which you don't really see from anywhere else as well, which is quite important. So these sort of spec levels, and again, almost orientate why it's a little bit more expensive than maybe the starting point. So you're paying not for the eco, but you're actually paying for the sheer spec of the tent itself. The eco is just an added bonus to the whole range, really. I think to me as well, in terms of the colour, I think it looks really sharp. I'm a massive fan of kind of the blue and how it also looks. So that's kind of the Ospress. The main available in kind of the cold or the air, so you can pick and choose your wear. The next design we move on to is kind of the Aether. So the Aether, in many ways, is available in 2 different sizes. So you've got a 400 XL, and then a 450 and then a 600. So you pick and choose. It's almost like based on kind of the Capri or the Aventon of the past, but again available in a cold and air. So you've got this nice big canopy. You've then got a really sort of reasonable sort of sleeping or living area, and then a nice dark sort of sleeping section as well. So again, you can chop and choose between it all. Again, same thing we're talking about, you've got the mesh door scenario where you've got sort of front mesh door and a side mesh door. So it sits in its own sort of spec range in terms of Vango's collection. 2 different sizes, and again choose between cold and air. So that's the 450. We then move to kind of the 600. Again, definitely more, the Aether is more orientated for living. You've got this kind of open canopy area which gives you a bit of shelter from the wind and rain. Almost creates something like a wet, dry area, somewhere you can put your sort of shoes and that sort of stuff. But in terms of its overall design, you know, really quite nice and spacious. And we've got a nice sort of high-rise airbed in the back of there to kind of give you a bit more of an idea. What we'll do if we carry on round, we got next to the Gyro. Hello, don't trip over everywhere. So the Gyro, again, same sort of thing. It's almost based in many ways on kind of the Stargrove-esque we've seen. So it sits a bit above Stargrove in the model. Again, available in a cold and air version and 2 different sizes, so a 450 and a 600. So what you're almost getting is it branches between kind of the Experience collection of the Stargrove and then sits above the sort of XL. So between your sort of, you say like a Jura, Azura or Rome, and then the Stargrove, it sits between that middle kind of spec in terms of the features you've got in there with sort of double mesh doors, the material, and again, the things like the fiberglass poles and so forth. So it works really well. Admittedly, with the kind of the Gyro is the fact you've got an enclosed front section, which is quite unique. You know, and it gives you the flexibility. You can have it open like we see here. Alternatively, if you wanted to kind of close it up and make that more internal space or shelter space, you can actually quite do that. Still, we're talking about those sort of mesh features, so mesh side door, mesh front door, which admittedly is something like Stargrove doesn't really have, certainly not on the side. And again, you're looking around about sort of a 70D, 3000mm waterproof rated fabric. So again, really nice and strong, robust. It's even got colour locking as well to preserve the colour and it kind of elongates kind of the appearance of the actual tent itself. We've got kind of the darker bedrooms, as you can see as well, so hopefully gives you a better night's sleep. And all these features are basically around the range, so crystal clear windows with curtains, and so there's a lot and lot of talking points. We've actually, to mention, we've done an individual video on every single tent in the range, so if you want more nitty-gritty details, you can always check that out. Here I've got essentially the Ospress, but in the air form. So as you can see, exactly the same in every single principle, just the fact that you've got inflatable tubes each way. And it's worth actually mentioning, not only we're talking about the tents, like I said earlier, there's a whole sleeping bag range and even chairs. So we've got kind of simplistic kind of chair range, which again is made from single-use plastic. So we're almost turning waste into want. Quite nice, quite small, compact, and we've got a separate kind of video particularly on that if you want sort of more information on their range that you do with that. But everything we sort of saw necessarily with the pole model, you've got the same with the air, so you've got a little bit more of a structural strength with the air beam, and from one person pitching side of things, it's a lot simpler. But we've done pitching videos again on every single model you see in kind of the Earth collection. We come to obviously the air version of kind of the Aether, same principle, no difference, like I said. Decent sort of living area. Again, we've got loads of furniture, which again sits in the same kind of point. You've got low level ventilation beneath the windows as well to help with the airflow and sort of help fight condensation. Not to mention kind of, like I said, big, nice diamond clear windows to get the light and visibility in here. But in terms of sort of a living area, you've got drop-down doors as well, so you've got no trip hazards in and out of the main body. Great interior height, hanging points for lanterns, so all your kind of key essential features that you've come to know and love kind of with Vango tents and you must have, you're still all embedded in there as well. Slightly smaller version, so I think for me, the Gyro for me probably sits, I prefer maybe in terms of the sizing, the ability of the front of maybe sort of the Gyro to kind of the Aether. I mean, the Aether's got a slightly larger living area, but yeah, it is horses of course at the end of the day, so if you make it what you want to do, designs and the way it works. I think, yeah, for value for money, I think the ability to close that front door works a bit more for me. And things like, if you sit of it, I suppose the way you sort of dignify it is where if you look at something like the Experience range, so take the Stargrove for example, you think, right, okay, if it's I don't know, 10% more for an eco fabric and an eco spec, it kind of works that way. And I think for me, it works really well. And certainly when you see it in the flesh and feel the quality of kind of the material, no one would really kind of know that you're almost doing a bit for the environment. And there is almost a full story that Vango do as well, where we sort of start with the product life. Once it's kind of done, we can then be actually refined or remade into something which is a little project they've been working on behind closed doors. It's probably worth talking about how we get from a point from single-use plastic to the fabric. And what happens almost is if we take, say, a plastic bottle, for example, what they can do is they can basically make that down into pellets. The pellets can then basically go through this process that gets extruded into kind of thread. thread then woven into material, and then material into tents. So it all kind of works in a way that you've got this little cycle, and there is almost a start point from waste to product, and then we can also go back from once you've finished using your tents to a certain way. There's also a recycling scheme that will be coming soon that you can always have a look at as well. Last but not least, as our last tent, but like I said, furniture-wise, same sort of principle. Pretty much all the main components in terms of fabricated parts is made from, again, single-use plastic. Things like the, obviously metal and things like that you can't necessarily do, but you've got quite a wide range, whether you've got something like a typical kind of Malibu chair, or more something like the kind of Embrace chair. So something that's comfortable, still got an eco story. Admittedly, with something like this, you tend to find that you use maybe a little bit more kind of single-use or bottles, if you want to use the bottle count, just because even things like the fill and that sort of stuff tends to be all used for it. So it's not just kind of the face fabrics, it's literally the nitty-gritty thing, the sleeping bags, the fill, the lining, that sort of stuff. It's all kind of used from this point. So for me, I was quite surprised initially how far a bottle will go. You think of a big tent like this, for the biggest tent, which is the 600 version of this, it's about 263 bottles in a product like that, which means in our separate videos, we've actually positioned said bottles next to tents to try to really kind of visually see what you get from what, and it's a lot less than I thought, which is quite surprising. It means it shows you how much you can actually do, and in terms of the grand scheme of things, it's pretty much endless the amount of products, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see from year to year to year whether Vango sort of maybe spread this port out in the future. It's definitely it's more of a dignified way to use plastic and reuse what essentially is going into landfill. So it's a nice little concept. But if you want any more information or anything like that, feel free to contact us directly. We can always give you sort of different details or versions, and it's certainly the Earth range is one we're definitely going to support and also have up on our sort of indoor display showroom, so you can always check that out as well. But any more questions or queries, feel free to follow the link below straight through to our website. But that's kind of our little kind of preview on kind of Vango's new Earth collection for 2021, and also probably going forward as well.